One of the biggest problems that I see with golfers is actually taking the club back correctly. So what I wanted to do now is just show you a way of doing it and some things that you could avoid doing, because if we get that club too far behind your body, it can cause so many problems with the golf swing. So in an ideal world, what we're looking to do is to turn everything away to hip height together. So as we're doing that, my wrists and forearms have had very little work to do from here. I'm just simply turning and transferring my weight well. Now, as a reference point from here, the butt of the club is pointing to the center of my body. So as I turn to here, I feel like it's still pointing in the same place. So this now can become incredibly consistent. Now, one of the worst things that we can do from here is to start the backswing using your wrists and forearms. So if I start to rotate my wrists and forearms, hopefully what you can see here is the end of my club is now pointing away off to the right rather than still pointing towards the center of my body. So if you've got this action here in the backswing, you're going to have to re-rotate it and reroute the golf club on the way back down to actually square your club face up. The chances of you doing that consistently well are really limited unless you're hitting thousands of golf balls over a lifetime, because you're going to be so reliant on hand and eye coordination. So if we could simplify that and get your body moving and your arms moving together at the start of the backswing, and then simply setting the wrist to the top of the backswing, this is going to make your backswing so much more reliable, and it's the same feeling with all clubs. So as I'm turning to the side, my weight is transferring onto my right foot, and my hands and arms have had to do very, very little to this point. And then from here, we just simply cock the wrists, and that sets the club to the top of the backswing. So the worst thing that we can do from here is rotate the forearms. The club gets too far behind you. It actually gets a little bit what's called flat here at the top of the backswing, and when it's in this flat position, the next thing you're going to do is now bring the club back over. So it's like a chopping action that we really need to avoid. It's not very good at all for hitting good consistent golf balls. So the first movement is we're turning everything. Now, there's a lot of people out there saying that all you've got to do is just move your arms onto plane, but now you're not going to match the body movement up with the arms, and you're going to have the same kind of issue through impact, where you're going to be manipulating the club back to square rather than working it as a unit. So everything turns together. The butt of the club is pointing towards my belly, and that's keeping the club on a really good path. Now, let's say you're playing on the golf course and you've lost the feeling, you don't know what to do, you haven't got any practice clubs with you. Really simple thing to do is, if you hold the golf club right down at the bottom near the head and rest the grip against your lead hip. Grip it as normal. Now, it does feel a little bit strange initially because the shaft is angled forward because the hip's in the way. But as an exercise, a great thing to do from here is just rehearse this first movement to hip height. So let's just do that from face on. So I'm just turning, and the golf club, the grip, has stayed against my left hip in my case. And then from here, it's a simple setting of the wrist right to the top of the backswing. So what it would look like if I do this wrong and rotate my forearms straight away, hopefully you'll see this if I do it from this side, straight away the clubs come away from my side. Now I would be in this flat position, and then we start to come over the top to try and correct that one. So it just, as a simple thing on the golf course, stick it against your left hip, turn to hip height, set the wrist correctly, and now it actually comes back to where it was at the start. So from here, if I come over, it'll miss my left hip. If I come under, I'll miss my left hip. So turns, sets, back to impact, turn through to here, and you can't really go any further than this because the club wants to move away from your side, but it's a great way of just working on some consistent movements back to impact again. Turn, back to impact. So it's staying against my left hip, the wrist set, back to impact. It'll make a huge difference. So if I just show you the two things that what we're trying to do and the other one that we're trying to avoid. So if I start my backswing, rotate my wrists and forearms, club gets way behind my body from here. From there, it's really easy to chop the ball or keep it on that path and block it way off to the right. So let's do that incorrectly. Roll those wrists and forearms. So on that one there, I've actually held the club face wide open, and that's nearly a shank that's just shot off miles offline, way to the right, and I just couldn't really get that golf club back to square. So there's another default that people do from there. So they move the wrist poorly here in the backswing, and then from there come over the top to try and bring it back, and this is when we can start pulling the shot. So I'll try and do this slowly. Poor wrist and forearm movement, in, over, and that's when we end up hitting that horrible pull shot. So let's just show you the right way of doing this. So everything moves together, simple cocking of the wrist to the top of the backswing, and this should really make a huge difference. So everything moves together. I'll just do that one more time so you can see it. I'll try and do it slowly just so you can see the movement. So everything's moving as one, no independent wrist and forearm to hip height. Okay. Go through. So that one felt quite nice actually, but that's just gone bullet straight really. It's probably about 2 or 3 yards offline. Let's have a quick look on there. So 2.7 yards offline, plenty of distance for this exercise, but work on this. Try and, if you've got an issue where you're rotating the wrists and forearms too quickly, do it in a slower motion. That gives you time to really feel what you're doing rather than guessing what you're doing. But this will make a really big difference to your golf strikes. And again, if you like this, and I've got so many more videos on my new website, which is propergolfing.com, which you can click on the link below and see that one. And if you like what we're saying here, please subscribe to my channel, and I'm certain there's going to be an awful lot more information on here that will help you with your golf game. Thanks for watching. Bye.